We'd like to welcome all of you to our council meeting tonight. Welcome to the Bountiful City Council meeting, and we have been in meetings since 3 o'clock, budget meetings, and so you'll have to, I apologize for the late notice and also, the late start, and also we were trying to hurry and get a bite to eat between meetings, so that's why we don't usually have food, but that's why we're eating as well tonight. We would love to welcome you all, and we appreciate Terry Eggett being willing to give us our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our prayer from Pastor Benjer McVeigh from the Flourishing Grace Church. So, Terry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of Flourishing Grace Church, thank you for welcoming us here. I promise I won't take too long. I want to read a quick one-verse scripture from Micah, chapter 6, verse 8. And it says, "He has showed you, O human, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." It struck me tonight. I was actually watching the Chronicles of Narnia with my kids today before we came over. And if you've never seen the movie, the movie begins with the bombing of England and children who are sent north, which is the beginning of the story of the Chronicles of Narnia, to safety. And I was struck anew as a father, even though I've loved C.S. Lewis for years, just at the trauma that involves. And here we are at a city council meeting where there is justice that we long to seek and do the right thing. And yet there are people in our world who are experiencing what I watched on the movie today, especially in Ukraine. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to offer today's prayer for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine today. Let us pray. Father God, as I look out these windows to just this majestic beauty and sit in the safety of a public meeting where we have come together, though we agree and sometimes disagree, we come together to seek the public good of our neighbor. Father, there are those who do not have that right today. And there are those who are in fear. There are those who have been killed. There are those who have lost family members. There are those who are in countries where they did not grow up and they do not now speak the language because they are fleeing war. So, Father, we pray for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. God, I pray that today that you would comfort those who are in fear. You would comfort those who are mourning. You would comfort those who are fighting. And God, today as we serve our communities and serve our neighbors, Father, may we be mindful of what you have given us here. Father, may we not waste it. May we not take it for granted. But Father, would you give us the courage and the love to use this in a way that would honor you and your Son, Jesus. We pray these things in his name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that prayer and that reminder about what they're going through in Ukraine right now while we're sitting here peacefully in our meeting. So thank you so much. And thank you, Terry, for that Pledge of Allegiance. We will now move to the public comment period of our meeting. And just as a reminder, anyone who would like to come up, you have 2 minutes to speak, and there's 10 minutes total for our public comment period. So we'd love to hear from you. If you would like to stand up and speak, please state your name and your address.
I'll go first. My name is Terry Eggett, 1351 East, 1800 South here in Bountiful. And it's nice to be with you again. First of all, I'd like to I haven't had a chance to congratulate Councilmember Price Hewish and Bell for your election, and grateful to have the insight that you'll add to our city council. I only recently had a chance to congratulate Mayor Harris, but thank you also for your willingness to serve. My purpose in coming tonight, I hope, is just a joyful one. As some of you know, about 3 years ago, you approved our family's little subdivision that we're developing up on what's commonly known as the Llama property up by Wheeler Park. And with COVID and everything, it took until last year to get started on that. But we're just finishing it up. And I just am here on behalf of my family and myself to thank the various departments of Bountiful City for all their help and their support as we've gone through this little project. I'm very grateful to Lloyd and Todd and Reed and the engineering department, the gals that are out at the front desk, and for all that they have done to answer my jillions of questions and support us. Grateful to planning and zoning, and I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget any. The power department, the Bountiful City Power, water department, the streets, the irrigation, and though they're not a Bountiful City entity, even the sewer district that works really closely with all of them and their support down there. I think probably the best compliment I could pay these great public servants in all of these various departments is that as a result of working closely with them over the last year, I feel like I made some new friends. And that means a lot to me and to my family. I'm especially grateful to Lloyd. I can't tell you enough how helpful and supportive he has been. Even from the very beginning, he, I think, saw what we were trying to accomplish and has just facilitated that in every way. And in many ways, I hope you appreciate what I think is a really gem of a person and does a wonderful good. He'd never want any credit or be any recognition, but he is that good of a man, and I want to thank him for that. Thank all of you for your support, and that's really all I wanted to say. We'll be leaving on a mission here next month for about 1.5 years, so hopefully we'll see you when we get back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ray Ward at 954 East Millbrook Way. I just wanted to bring in an update, so I was kind of telling you all at once what I've worked with a bunch of you on the new park down in West Bountiful. And when I'm so happy with how things are moving forward for it, and thank you for all of your work on it. I had, I guess, said two things to Gary, to you, and to the council, and those two things were that I was confident that there would be a group from the community who would be willing to come together to raise more money for pickleball courts, and that I was also willing to donate to that significantly, Beverly and I myself. And I was wrong about one of those things. So I have worked, and I've found some individual folks who are willing to donate, but I've not been able to find a group that's willing to come together to donate to that. I still very much want to make good on the commitment that I'm willing to donate to that, and I really want the park to turn out well, and I will be happy however the park may turn out. So I would still be willing to donate the cost of one court. If the city wanted to match one more court, that would make 8 instead of 6. I would be happy to do that. I'm not saying that you ought to do that. If the city doesn't want to do that, we're also happy to donate $15,000 toward something that wouldn't be otherwise able to be put in the park, if that's more picnic tables or a small pavilion at the city's discretion. And if that is still just more trouble than it's worth, I'm happy to bow out of the whole thing and come play pickleball on the courts that are there when it's built. But I just thought it might be easiest to tell you all at the same time. And thank you so much for all your work on it.
Hi, my name is Ellie Rogers, and I live at 5 West, 1400 South, and I am here tonight to voice concerns over short-term rentals, the STRs, in our community. I appreciate the work sessions. I watched the last one online, and then also today. But I wanted to tell you my thoughts. I'm aware of 2 homes on my block that lease the upstairs and downstairs as short-term rentals, so 4 total units. There are other STRs in my neighborhood that I suspect have been created to sidestep current Bountiful City zoning codes for long-term rentals. At one time, the upstairs and downstairs of both of these houses were set as long-term rentals where the renters would move in and put down roots and be part of our community. Their children attended our schools and they were involved in the neighborhood. I understand the need for rental and housing options during this time, and I am not against the creation of rentals as long as they are properly maintained and taken care of. However, short-term rentals do not meet the growing needs of rental and housing properties. They remove the rental and housing options from the market and turn away potential long-term renters that would be part of our community. So those 4 houses or 4 units are taking away 4 potential places in our community where long-term renters could use that are affordable housing. An STR is not that different from a miniature motel, which exposes our community to a revolving door of patrons with no sense of continuity. If we allow short-term rentals to go unregulated in Bountiful City, people are going to continue to put profit over neighborhood and community. And I think that's what it really boils down to, is money versus the community and the neighborhood that we have going on. I feel strongly that short-term rentals should not be allowed in our community. In addition, I believe having a responsible party that was talked about earlier doesn't change the fact that the majority of this time, the homes are vacant, just for weekend rentals. So I'll leave you with that. And then I also have questions, and I don't know how this works. This is the first time I've ever done this. But if we have questions, how do we address those? Because I have 2 questions. Can I ask them, or am I out of time?
So you're out of time, but the purpose of public comment is for you to say something so that the whole council and all the staff can hear what you have to say.
Okay.
And then because during city council meetings, we have to publicly notice everything that's discussed. We're not able to take additional questions because we
okay.
have to notice that to everyone that we're going to be discussing these items. But you're happy, one of our staff members would be happy to take your questions if you want to just meet in the back of the room or.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And then maybe I could ask the staff questions. I won't take any more of your time. I'll
Thank
just
you.
go on.
Thank you so much.
How are you? I'm Leslie Merrill, 2347 South Orchard Place. We have a company called Field Water Testing in Bountiful. We also have a company called Retigo Labs. It's in West Bountiful. We work very closely with the water department on some of the water issues. I wanted to stand today and congratulate you on the great job that the water department is doing. The water tests that I have in front of me today, we did at the Mueller Park facility that has heard a lot of complaints. The water quality is, and I just told Craig this, is too good. It really is. It is very, very clean and pure water. It has a green tint, but there's a number of things we tested for that we know that it's not, and that's all good. But what I would like to warn the community about, as good as this water is, inside of your home, if it's not treated right, it can become toxic. And we have also seen instances of misapplied technologies in homes that have had copper levels 600% over the EPA health limits. So I want to make notice, public today, that that happens to our good water. So the taste issues that you see and the complaints that we see, in every case where I've tested the water in Bountiful, it comes down to something inappropriately applied in the home. So I have 10 seconds left, but thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Debbie Miller. I live at 14 East, 1500 South, and I did send an email to each of you today. I appreciate you taking time to look at it. I know it was short notice and you have busy lives. My husband was mayor of West Jordan for a number of years, and so I totally understand what you are having to do here, so I appreciate it. But I do want you to consider, I'm here also to address the short-term housing, the rentals. I also, on 1500, I'm one street away from Ellie. Also, 2 up and down duplexes have displaced families. I mean, they've been given 30 days notice, you're out of here, we're turning it into an STR. And so we also, just in a very short span of area, we go up to about 50, is it 75 East? and down to the park. I mean, we're in a very short there part of 1,500 that I'm totally aware of are 2 units up and down. So again, 4 units. There's another house that a few years ago, before the changes were made to accommodate ADUs, had gone ahead and done this with their home, put in a big pad in the front yard, and they do nothing with the yard at all, moved to Seattle, and longer-term rentals, from what I know, are there, but there could be, I don't really know, because they don't interact with the neighbors. And so when I hear the discussion about things like the garbage and the parties and things like that, it goes way beyond that. We have children walking to and from school, and people that, you know, we lose the neighborhood feel that we moved here for, where we can look out for each other and we can make sure that the children are safe. We know the comings and goings of the cars and things like that that we can kind of watch out for. The short-term rentals don't do that. We also, I'm finding that the people that are doing these are not, it's not because they're scraping by. If that were the case, the long-term rental would work just as well as a short-term rental. It's more people that are making it for a huge income for their own profit. So I could say a lot, but I appreciate you taking time to read the letter if you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my
This
name
will
is
be our last.
My name is Joanne Edminster. I live at 57 East, 2750 South, and I'm here to speak to the short-term rentals. And I wrote a letter several years ago to the Planning Commission. I'm just going to read part of it now. I realize the economic benefits to those who rent their homes, but I would ask that you seriously consider the external economic cost these rentals have on neighborhoods. If an individual desires to run a hotel business, then there are options for them to do so in an appropriate manner consistent with city codes. I believe that I cannot be the only resident that has tried to resolve or mitigate some of the problems associated with the practice. I live next door to one. Unfortunately, due to the transient nature of the renters, a problem may be resolved with one renter only to happen again with the next. Absentee owners who are unwilling or unable to monitor their renters and resolve problems or expect the neighbors to provide an environment conducive to their rental activities exacerbate the problems. I have experienced lost strangers knocking on my windows and doors in the middle of the night, being surprised in my yard. And, you know, I'm not opposed to short-term rentals, but I do think that there needs to be guidance and ordinances to regulate them and what they're allowed to do. We bought a home in a single-family it's zoned for single-family residences. If you're not going to have some kind of meaning to the zoning, why have it at all? I mean, I just think you need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate, it seems like a few of you mentioned that you'd emailed us, and we really appreciate that communication. So please, if you have concerns or questions, please reach out and email or call us anytime. We will now move to consider the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
After you. Sorry. After you. I move that we approve the minutes of our city council meeting held on March 22nd, 2022.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you. We will now move to council reports, and we will start with Councilwoman Price Hewish.
I am here today to, Okay. Mostly today, I'd like to highlight a few things that are happening at the Bountiful Davis Arts Center. They are doing a lot of great things coming up. They're starting their Music Fest, and the first concert will be on April 21st. There will be 3 concerts, one in April, one in July, and October, as part of the Music Fest, all different types of professional music. Summerfest is also on its way, and it's under a new format where it will be held every Monday in June, highlighting the Andes, Native American culture, Greece, and China. Also, I would just recommend to everybody, if you haven't been by the BDAC lately, drive by and look up on the north side of the building, and you'll see the amazing mural that is underway. And that's going to be a real addition to our downtown area and public art space. Finally, Free Family Art Night is back, starting up on April 25th. It's free to anybody. The materials are supplied. And if I saw some high school students in here, the Davis School District Student Exhibition is still going through April 30th. And that is just an amazing highlight of a number of our local students and their wonderful artwork. So a lot of wonderful things happening at the BDAC.
Thank you. Councilman Bell.
So I'd like to touch on the Bountiful Service Council. I am just always in awe of the quality of service that they're providing and the magnitude of the issues that they're addressing to make our community better. And I'll touch on two. One being the CERT training. If you're not familiar with the CERT training, that's where they're training people in our community how to respond in times of emergency. And they had recently graduated their highest number of graduates, at 72 individuals, including the mayor, who recently graduated with that certification. And it makes me feel better about living in our community where our neighbors and friends are getting trained on valuable resources that could benefit me and my family. And then the second item of many, I'll just touch on the concerts in the park. There's 9 concerts scheduled and will be happening in our parks this year, in our 4th North Park. And there's a great lineup, and I encourage everybody to attend. And they are also looking for sponsors to help promote this and make it successful. So if you are inclined or know someone that might be interested in supporting that, Richard Watson can help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you. One of the boards that I serve on, along with our city manager, is the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And we were reminded at our most recent board meeting that the league has appointments to a number of different boards and commissions, a spot on some of these boards to represent cities in regional committees, in statewide committees with impact. There are every year created a number of new boards and commissions when the legislature's in session that often need a city representative. And there are a number of openings where the league is looking for council members and mayors that would be willing to serve on some of these various committees. Everything from, the Wasatch Front Regional Council dealing with growth, watershed council needs different representatives. UDOT in their regional offices needs people that are willing to serve and represent cities broadly. So encourage all of you to take a look and see if there's something that's of interest that makes sense that would fit your schedule.
Thank you. Councilman Higginson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick reminder to folks that mosquito season is quickly approaching and that the Mosquito Abatement District has a service available where you can call them if you have an outdoor event and have them come and, either spray your yard, spray the location where that event will be taking place. So there's no need to provide easy meals for mosquitoes. If you have outdoor events coming up, make sure to call them a few days ahead and they'll come and spray for those mosquitoes. That's it for today.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilwoman Barr.
Only that I had a neat experience with a resident this past week who said that she and her sister are currently in the Bountiful, I can't remember the name of the program that the police department has. It's the 16-week course the Citizens Academy. But they are participating in it, and they just are having the best time. And they said they think every single person in Bountiful should do it. And she really said she thinks every member of the council should do it. But she truly went on and on about it. So if any of our residents haven't heard about it, it would be something to look into. It's a 16-week course through the Bountiful Police Department, and you do everything from, there are some simulations on raids and all of these things. Anyway, it's just a really neat course to see what our police department does for our residents. So.
Thank you. That's great. Is there a BCYC report?
Yes, thank you, Brooke.
Hi, I'm Brooke Blazard, and I'm the mayor of the Bountiful City Youth Council. One of the main things we're focusing on right now is the bunny hop this Saturday from 9 to 11. With an Easter egg hunt and some carnival games and stuff like that. We also have our applications for our new members due this Friday, and we had our applications for new leadership due last week. So we're probably going to interview those guys next week. We tried to do a game day with North Salt Lake, Woods Cross, and Centerville's youth councils after the leadership conference at Utah State. We met them and wanted to do something together, but the weather was bad that day. So we're going to postpone that, but we're hoping to get around to that. I think that's what we mostly have going on right now. Does anyone have any questions?
So the egg hunt is this Saturday for all kids, and it's at the Bountiful Park
Yes.
at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Sounds fun. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brooke. Okay, we will now move to consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000.
I'm happy to make a motion that we approve expenditures greater than $1,000 paid March 14th, 21st, and 28th of this year, as well as the February 2022 expense report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. We will now move to consider approval of the appointment of Susan Anderson, Beth Child, and Charlene Thompson to the Community Service Council. And Brian Potts, would you be willing to come up here? Brian is the chairman of our Bountiful Community Service Council, and he just happens to also be my buddy from the CERT class. That was so fun. We learned a lot. Yes. Yes. So I will turn the time over to Mr. Gary Hill, but I also wanted to give Brian a minute.
We're very, very proud of our Community Service Council. There are times where we talk about the population of any city on this continuum of interest in the community. And, you have the people on the far left that, not speaking politically, it could be the far right, on one end of the spectrum who, doesn't matter what happens in the city, they're angry. And then you have people on the far right that are dedicating their time and volunteering and serving this small population, and then the vast majority of us are kind of in the middle. Well, our Community Service Council folks are on the very tip of this far end of service. These are the people that are providing our CERT classes, that are managing our emergency management program, that are providing concerts in the park, that are putting on the emergency preparedness fair every year. And it's hard to express how grateful we are to all of you for your service. And so fortunately tonight we have 3 people to add to our numbers. And Brian, I don't know if you want to mention them or if you want me to do that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think we're fortunate to have Susan Anderson. And if you're here, do you mind, embarrass you, can you mind standing up for a minute?
Susan couldn't be here tonight.
Susan couldn't be here. Okay. Charlene, is Char here? She was going to be, oh, there you are. Charlene and Beth Child. And I've personally gotten to know Beth over the course of the last year with her campaign for city council, and just impressed by her genuine interest in the community. Char is a neighbor and friend of mine that I've known for a number of years, and member of Rotary, and so council and mayor, we couldn't recommend them more highly for appointment to the Community Service Council. And maybe Brian, you could take a minute and talk a little bit more about what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know most of the council knows this, but for those, especially in the audience and those on video, who don't know what we do, we are an umbrella organization for volunteer efforts within the city. Every person on this council is an expert in their field and contributes countless hours to the betterment of life here in Bountiful. And we're so grateful for all of them. Nobody likes getting up early on a Saturday morning in the second Saturday of every month, but they all come with bright eyes and great ideas. They report on things that have happened, and our purpose here is to have these disparate groups come together and use each other's services and expertise to help whatever project they're working on. So we are here to share ideas, share labor, whatever it takes to help each other be successful. And that is kind of the mission that we're going by at this time. So we would love to endorse these three wonderful members to our council.
Thank you so much for that. I'll just mention quickly that Charlene Thompson she's a liaison for the Bountiful Rotary Club, and she has been in the Rotary Club since 2013. She does church service, Days for Girls, Safe Harbor, the Turtles Shelter Project, the In Between, Food Pantry, Operation Underground Railroad, Coats for Kids car show, of course. And I am so impressed with her, as well as Beth Child, who Beth taught English as a second language at BYU. She does tutoring for refugees and immigrants. She's served in schools, South Davis Communities that Care Coalition. She's finishing up her master's in English education, and she's planning to lead the next TEDx Bountiful event here next year. So anyway, we're really lucky that these two women are willing to join our group. And Susan Anderson is fantastic as well. She's going to be a liaison for the Lions Club. So we just appreciate your willingness to serve, and I'll look for a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve our new appointees to the Community Service Commission, Susan Anderson, Beth Child, and Charlene Thompson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. I've never seen everyone so eager to second. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay. We will now move to our next item to consider approval of the purchase of an Air 2G2 air injection aerator. Mr. Hill, Brock Hill.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. We about wore out my welcome here with you folks, so I'll be brief. The first is an air tube. Both issues that I bring before you tonight deal with the golf course, Bountiful Ridge Golf Course. The first is the purchase of a piece of equipment that's going to aid them in compaction issues and aeration issues. It's going to be vitally important this year considering the irrigation restrictions we're going to face, and this will just aid in that effort. It's different than what they currently are using. This is a product that injects air into the ground, and it goes much deeper than what they're currently able to do with their existing equipment. It can reach depths up to 2 feet as opposed to just 4 to 6 inches, and it's less disruptive to the turf and the greens and the tees so that play can continue. In the past, we've had to shut down play during aeration times, and this will prevent that shutdown. So it provides a better product to our patrons and also extends time in revenue gaining. There is money available in the capital projects budget. By shifting a truck purchase that was currently in the budget, we've moved that to next year because of availability products, cooperation from our vendors that we reached out to. So this is in place of that purchase. The truck is moved to next year upon your approval. So staff recommends the council approve the purchase of the Air 2 G2 injector at the cost of $38,922.85. I'll answer any questions.
I don't have any questions. I think sounds like a great addition of equipment in this water-wise and restricted environment that we find ourselves in. So I think it's a great, if no one has any other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the Air 2 G2 air injection aerator from Turf Equipment and Irrigation in the amount of $38,923.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. And Mr. Brock Hill, the next item.
Thank you again. This staff report outlines the renovation. As you're aware, we've been going through an extensive interior remodel and renovation at the clubhouse. It's on the cafe side of the greenhouse. As you know, as you're aware, you come in the front door. One side's the pro shop, the other side's the cafe. This is strictly on the cafe side. And back in December, I brought before you that you approved the construction contract, the remodel contract for $174,100, which was approved. So that helped us get started. Red Engineering immediately jumped in. We're basically about 98% complete up there. The new concessionaire is open for business, and we just received their certificate of occupancy on Monday. So things are working, things are great. It's a beautiful project. The costs that you're seeing associated with that renovation were part of the original approved contract, but we've also had some overages based on unavailability of products, so we've had to change products. Also, in cost of products went up drastically in those few months that we were under construction. Also, as we took out some of the kitchen equipment, it was deemed unusable. We had some leaks in some gas lines that were associated with those kitchen appliances that needed to be replaced, so that's part of the overages. And then there were some upgrades in the flooring that needed to take place and some framing that needed to be done as we tore into walls and we removed things that were damaged from water over time. So as you can see in your report, those overages equal $51,432, which brings the total project cost to $225,532. There are funds available in the Bountiful Ridge Golf Course reserve fund. So we asked for authorization to spend those reserve funds in that amount to cover the overage costs.
Any questions?
I do have one question, putting Brock on the spot. How many of those $51,432 are tax dollars?
$0 of that are tax dollars.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind folks that the golf course pays for itself and pays its own way.
It does.
And is not subsidized by tax dollars.
That's true. We're fortunate.
I wanted to ask a clarifying question. Is this coming out of the construction contingency as the project was originally scoped, or has it exceeded the contingency in the construction budget, and so it's coming out of the reserves? I wanted to just be clear on.
This is coming strictly from reserves. There was no contingency built into the original renovation costs.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up to that, what does this leave in reserves?
I don't know that answer for sure. I'll find out and can get back to you.
Okay.
Good questions. Anything else?
Mayor, if not, I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve a change order for $51,432 for the renovation of the clubhouse as has been described.
Second.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll now consider approval of the preliminary and final site plan for 2055 South Main. Mr. Astorga.
Thank you. This is preliminary and final site plan approval for 19 units at 2055 Main Street. The site already has the appropriate zoning, which is RM 19. The staff report outlines all of the components, as indicated on page 103. It's not working, but that's okay. And Mr. Eric Beard, he's here, right? He's in the back. He's the owner and developer. He'll be more than happy to answer any questions. I love this condition of approval on page 106, which is address all red lines provided to the applicant from the city. It meets the material requirements, the density, the parking. Just to reiterate, 19 units in 2 buildings, mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units, 3 stories, 30 feet high. That's pretty much all I have. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Food for thought, if this site was required to meet that 15% requirement for landscaping, it would be about 2,900 square feet of turf area that would be limited to have. If you look at the site plan, it has a lot more than that. Just to give you a quick scenario, this would be vested under the current code, so it would be okay to move as is. I thought I'd give you a quick example on what we discussed earlier today. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, any specific questions, but the Planning Commission did take a look at this. I think we had 4 members that night, and it passed as proposed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor, I think it is noteworthy that there's only one condition, and the applicant and the planning department should be proud of their work on this. I'd be happy to make a motion that we grant preliminary and final architectural site plan review for this project.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
The next item is a simple PUD plat for this development,
Any other comments?
which Lloyd is in
Oh, I'm
charge of.
sorry. Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor. As Francisco mentioned, this is about as simple a plat approval as we would ever get, because Mr. Beard intends to sell this product individually. It does require that a plat be prepared, and as mentioned in our memo, his development meets all the requirements for a PUD plat. It meets all the zoning requirements in this zone. There really are no concerns from the engineering department, and the Planning Commission has forwarded a recommendation for preliminary and final approval of the plat. It's noteworthy that Mr. Beard's gone to some great lengths to accommodate the requirements of our fire district in giving them plenty of access to get in and service this facility. Utilities are all available. Really, this is ready to roll. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
Mayor, I'll be happy to make a motion that we grant preliminary and final approval of the plat for the planned unit development at 2055 Main Street as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you so much. We will now consider approval of JMR Construction's proposal of concrete road slab and pedestrian curb ramp replacement. Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor. In the interest of trying to make up some ground over the last couple of years and the struggles we've had with materials availability and contractors being available, we thought it would be a good idea to put out another contract to address some of our maintenance issues on our concrete streets, and also to work a little harder on some of our pedestrian ramps around town that need some maintenance. Particularly, we're concerned about areas of high traffic around the schools in downtown. We really want to bring those up to code and have some great school routes for our kids to walk to school with. So we put together a more limited contract than what we awarded earlier this year to Hydrovac. This really just encompasses pavement maintenance and ADA ramps and sidewalks and some limited improvements. So 3 bids, JMR was a low bid. Many of you are very familiar with JMR, great company to work with. We know them, they know us, they know how we like to do things, and we would recommend that you approve the contract with JMR at the unit prices shown in the bid tabulation.
So moved.
Second.
May I ask just a quick question?
sorry.
I will withdraw my second.
No. Is there any way that we can get a map of the curbs that will be updated or that will become ADA compliant in the future through this contract?
Yeah, I believe so.
Thank you.
The follow-up to that, are there any curbs in the city that are not ADA compliant right now that don't have a ramp, that we're utilizing this contract to actually build a new ramp where it didn't exist before?
Most of our work is going to be focused on existing ramps that are out of compliance that are around the schools. But yes, there are lots of corners that need rehabilitation to meet the ADA guidelines. We are just trying to scratch the surface.
Do we have a long-term plan to get in compliance with these non-complying curbs?
We do them in conjunction with maintenance projects, so overlays, reconstructions, storm drain work. That's the focus of our work.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilman Higginson and a second from Councilwoman Bradshaw. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We'll now turn the time over to Mr. Cheney again to consider approval of water restrictions.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have for your consideration Resolution 22-04. I believe each of you were given a fresh copy. That's because we made one minor change to item 9 in the wording, just adding the words high-use public facilities with our policy to maintain and irrigate our public spaces. This proclamation or resolution also includes our enforcement policies. This is a carryover from last year, basically a repeat of our efforts for those who choose not to comply.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-04 regarding watering restrictions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. And Mr. Cheney to consider approval of the adoption of Proclamation 2022-1.
Thank you, Mayor. City Code authorizes the mayor to issue a proclamation regarding the scarcity of water. This proclamation is essentially a continuation of the proclamation issued last year by Mayor Lewis, and we would recommend your approval of that proclamation.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to an earlier item that we missed from the work session where we want to give some direction about the newsletter, the city newsletter. Can I turn the time over to you?
Yep, I'll be doing this in place of Shauna, our newsletter editor in chief. We have been publishing a 4-page quarterly newsletter for about 30 years in Bountiful. It goes out every 3 months, and it goes in 3 different billing cycles. So we don't send all of our utility bills out at the same time because of the number of them. They get sent out on the 10th, 20th, and 30th. There was direction given by the council at the council retreat earlier this year to look at a new format, possibly, and look at monthly printing. So we spent some time looking at various different options and reviewed these with the mayor as well, and have provided a couple of examples of two-page newsletters that are in your packet, and have provided a little bit of cost information. Tonight, what we'd be looking for is if you have a preference on a format of one of the two that have been provided, if you could give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, or it's not that important to you. And then a second question is, in light of the fact that going to monthly circulation will double the cost of the newsletter, if you still want to proceed with monthly, or if you'd rather do every other month, which would still be more frequent than quarterly. So your thoughts on those items, council?
Are we calling I was going to say, are we calling these options A and options B, or you want us to just hold up the one we like?
I think I can remember A and B.
So this one is A?
Yep, A is the bubble and B is the lines.
I like B. It's easier to read. B.
B.
Okay, let it be. I heard some chuckles and a few groans. Both deserved. Okay, and then your thoughts about printing monthly or bi-monthly. I mean, it might be worth pointing out that even when we did it quarterly, we sometimes found it difficult to find enough content to put in there quarterly. And this month is kind of the same thing. There's not a lot of content to put out in the newsletter. That will ebb and flow, of course, but and there is some increase in the amount of staff time to do this monthly as opposed to quarterly. But we are happy to do what you would like us to do. So,
My opinion is at least quarterly. I don't have any stronger opinion than that. Thank you.
I think the content issue would probably be resolved just due to the fact that it's a 2-page newsletter as opposed to a 4-page newsletter, which 4 pages does seem excessive, but 2 seems more packed with good info.
I would like to see us go to every other month, so increase our frequency, but maybe not go monthly. I think one of the challenges of the quarterly newsletter is when you have the light bulb moment that you should forward something to go in the newsletter. Sometimes it won't be evergreen enough for that full quarter. And so sometimes I'll opt not to or hope it'll make it in the E's newsletter edition. But I've often found our quarterly newsletter it just isn't timely enough. So I think if we increase the frequency a little bit, but shorten it, we may hit that sweet spot.
I'm comfortable with every other month.
okay,
I like every other month, and it evens out the cost to what we're spending right now.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Great.
Any other thoughts about the newsletter? Any other direction you need? Okay. Great. Okay. We will now look for a motion to adjourn to an RDA. Do we need a break? Do we
need to do the projects and priorities?
We are tabling that
Okay,
item.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
No problem. But we will get to that soon. Okay, so we will now adjourn. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adjourn this meeting and then reconvene for the purposes of an RDA meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now adjourned to an RDA meeting. Welcome to our RDA board meeting. And I would like to consider approval of the minutes.
I have a question regarding that.
Sure.
Where I did not attend this meeting, I don't know the content, can I abstain from this vote?
Sure.
You can vote or you can abstain. You can trust your peers and vote with them, or you can abstain.
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
I trust my peers.
I would point out that I was excused from this meeting, which now leaves 2 members of the council that will be able to vote if we don't vote if we weren't there.
Okay. Is anyone comfortable making a motion to approve the minutes?
I am comfortable making the motion to approve the minutes from June 22nd of 2021, long ago, but accurately captured in the minutes.
And I am happy to second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We will,
Oh, Mayor,
yes.
remember, you get to vote on this one.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will now discuss the development agreement for conditional grant for the construction of the second parking facility at Renaissance. And is this yours, Francisco?
It is. And I think in this capacity, she's the chair of the RDA, but not the mayor.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So with that said, this is a development agreement for conditional grant for the construction of the second parking facility at Renaissance Town Center. Town Center LLC, represented by Bruce Broadhead, is here. And he submitted a request to, a conditional grant request for $3.98 million to finance the construction of the second parking facility at Renaissance Town Center. That site plan, in conjunction with that parking garage, in conjunction with the RTC South apartment building, AKA the big boy, 287 units, was approved by the City Council as a final architectural and site plan on January 11th of 2022. That parking facility is 7 levels high, and it contains 420C parking spaces. We have modeled this conditional grant the same way that we modeled the former grant for $1,020,000 that was set up in December 8th of 2020. This would satisfy the RDA's commitments towards Renaissance Town Center of that commitment of $5 million. In conjunction with the application, the applicant also requests, and I'm going to butcher this term, it's the special area assessment, is that right?
Special assessment area. You were so close.
I was right there. And Miranda, we do have 4 slides that Gary's gonna help me with this presentation, if that's okay. If that's okay, Gary?
Yep.
Let me go ahead and bring it over. And
Okay. So maybe a little bit of historical context, jumping in our Wayback Machine with Mr. Peabody. Back in 2003, the city took a couple of steps to help with the development of the Renaissance Town Center. The city issued lease revenue bonds through the Municipal Building Authority. It's not worth getting into what a Municipal Building Authority is necessarily here, but it was a mechanism for financing that was available, that was more common than sales tax bonds back then. And so we issued $3.79 million to help build the public parking structure that is over there now. Those bonds were repaid with RDA tax increment that was to be collected from 2003 on through the end of the existing RDA, which was about 2015. The city also issued special assessment bonds in the amount of 2.7 roughly to help build road, water, sewer, lighting, wastewater infrastructure. Those bonds were paid for by the development through the creation of what you call a special assessment area. It's basically a geographical area where the properties within that area are assessed an additional fee that is then used to pay back the bonds. That was the security for the bonds. So the RDA paid for the 3.79, and then the special assessment bonds were paid for by the development through tenant fees. We're doing something very similar now in 2022. And just so we're all keeping track, last December, a year ago December, the council approved, the RDA board approved a loan from our RDA fund of $330,000 to provide improvement and maintenance for the existing parking structure. The terms of that was a 10-year repayment at 3% interest. And then we also approved at that time a loan to grant similar to what you're considering tonight for $1.02 million. That was to build Renaissance Town Drive and to provide a little bit of money for excavation of the second parking structure. If you recall, the way that works is this is essentially a grant that, and I've kind of got it backwards, it's essentially a grant that if development benchmarks aren't met, converts to a loan. And the intent of that is to incentivize completion of the whole project. So as sections of that development are completed, then that obligation goes away. And so this third step that we're taking tonight is to essentially provide the additional 3.98 to get to the total of $5 million that was earmarked from the RDA funds. That will also be provided as a loan to grant or grant to loan project. It's the same structure where as certain portions of the development are completed, then that obligation to repay the city goes away. The city, as part of this development agreement, we also agree to issue up to $6.4 million in bonds toward the parking structure. To explain that a little bit more, the total cost of the parking structure exceeds the 3.98. And the developer, rather than providing cash for that, was going to also create probably a special assessment area. Those assessments will be used to pay back the difference between the city's grant and the amount owing for the parking structure construction. At this point in time, depending upon our cash reserves in the RDA, we may be able to just simply give the 3.98, and so that the amount that we would actually bond for would be just the difference between the 3.98 and whatever the total construction is. We may actually finance a portion of those $3.98 million. That has yet to be worked out. This agreement just authorizes the RDA to earmark those funds and then begin to work with the developer to find the best financing mechanism up to $6.4 million. So in summary, what we're really doing is giving a grant of $3.98 million, and you're authorizing the city to begin to issue bonds on behalf of the developer, a portion of which will be repaid through the special assessment area.
Is this action starting the clock ticking for the time frame?
I'm trying to remember when the clock starts. I do believe that it is when the funds are delivered.
Available. It's when the funds are available to the developer, is what I
Funds
thought,
available.
but I could double check that.
Okay. So, and Bruce might know off the top of his head, but I think it is when the funds are available. So this would essentially start the clock.
In the slide previous, have those been repaid? And there's a zero balance or no obligations there?
That's correct. I think we've completed the obligation on those bonds just a couple of years ago, the MBA bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were paid off. I believe it's been about 4 years now.
Okay.
Before my time.
I have a question about the special assessment area or district. So if we do issue a bond, I want to use the right language for this, and for that additional $2,420,000, I don't see in here what the terms of the repayment would be, like what the schedule would be, what the interest rate would be.
That's all determined at the time you issue the bonds, what the interest rate is and the terms will be. It'll be very similar to what we're about to go through with the general obligation bonds. This would be done in conjunction with the developer, based on how, how large they want the payments to be and how many funds are involved. So we're just not at that point yet. But when we do get to that point where it's time to consider those, what they call parameters, we'll be back to the city council or the RDA board, and you'll approve a parameters resolution that sets the term, the maximum potential interest rate, things like that.
So one of the things you mentioned is the possibility of just financing this additional amount, the city financing it. Did I hear that correctly, as opposed to issuing a bond?
No, the city wouldn't be the lending agent. What I was saying is that $3.98 million that is our contribution, that may, depending upon the city's the RDA's cash flow situation, we may be able to just grant that money outright and not have to finance any of it. But we may have to cash flow some of it instead of doing that. So the pros and cons of that remain to be seen. That's something we'll begin working on with Bruce's folks and Jason Birmingham, our financial advisor. Sorry if I was unclear on that.
How long did it take for the special assessment area to repay the prior bond?
15 years.
I was going to say either 10 or 15. I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
2003 to 2018. Yeah, 15 years.
So the bond, other bonds the city might issue have a known time frame with a set schedule. This bond then is very dependent on the project being built and tenants being found and all of those types of things. So it has a kind of an indefinite end date.
No, it would still have a very definite term. We just haven't determined what it would be yet, 10, 15, or 20 years.
What was the interest rate on the previous bond that had the special assessment?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I'm going to have to give you a little bit of round figures because I looked at that today, but I don't have the document in front of me. When it was first issued, I want to say that the interest rate was about 4.9% interest in 2003. In 2013, I think it was refinanced at an interest rate of about, I think it was 1.3%. And so, right now we're closer to the 1.3. We're interest rates right now for this kind of a loan. We just looked at it, Jason, are in the threes, I think, high threes.
So on page 5, there's some recommendations of an interest rate of 3%. Could we not tie that interest rate to match what we get?
We cannot, because the 3% is the amount we dictate for the $3.98 million. That's our money, and we can dictate the terms. But if we finance this through a public bond, we cannot dictate the terms of the interest rate. That's essentially what the buyers will be bidding on, is the interest rate. So we can't dictate what the interest rate will be once we finance those publicly.
So I want to make sure I understand. So you're saying we can't dictate the rate that we're going to have for the bond, is that right?
That's right.
Which I understand. Could we not hold off on this percentage rate and match it to what we can get in the market? What I'm wondering is if we're saying, well, we'll get back 3%, but we're going to pay 4% potentially, or something higher than 3.
So our 3% for the 3.98 only applies if he doesn't meet his construction benchmarks and that grant turns into a loan. So it does not apply to any of the rest of the financing. Otherwise, it's just a grant, and there is no interest rate. And I think the 3% is just something we negotiated months ago with Bruce. So I would be reluctant to, and right now we're earning less than 1% interest So 3% is actually still earning the money in city money in the event that it becomes a loan. But it's everybody's expectation and in the developer's interest that none of it be converted to a loan. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's the time frame on the big boy for construction and completion?
Well, I could only say that the building permit was officially submitted today. So I can report on that aspect. The parking garage was submitted last month, and the big boy was submitted today for code compliance review. If Bruce wants to come up and answer specific questions, he can do that.
I'd be curious.
Bruce, do you mind?
So maybe a couple of questions, if you could touch on, is if financing has started and what time, when you anticipate starting construction?
As Francisco calls it the big boy, it's projected to take 2.5 years to construct and approximately 6 months afterwards to stabilize. So our construction loan period that we're anticipating is approximately 3 years.
Bruce, could I ask a follow-up question on that? That's because the big boy is phased, is that right? And so there's the garage, or the parking garage, and then are there 3 additional components? The residential part is 3 components?
I call them 3 pods.
Mm-hmm.
There's one on the north side, then there's the parking structure, and then there's 2 on the south side. We have to construct the parking structure first because the concrete walls have to go up because we're framing against them. And so the parking structure comes first, and then you can peel off on either side to do your construction. And then it becomes a timing issue of how fast construction can proceed with available labor. And of course, the problems today, I'd like to build it faster. Mm-hmm. It makes more economic sense to build it faster. You pay less interest to your construction lender, but you're constrained by the available labor force. Qualified labor force, building like this takes a higher qualification of labor than does a typical duplex or townhouse. So that's a 2.5 year to build and 3 year to finish leasing. We'll be leasing the first phase while we're building the second phase. And we'll be leasing the second phase while we're leasing the third phase. Because the way we've designed the building, we can have firewalls gone to the city engineer and the building inspector and the fire marshal. As long as we have the appropriate fire and safety and life codes met, we can occupy a phase once they're complete. Bring those on the market with the housing shortage that we have right now.
And it's anticipated that with the special assessment area or designation, I forgot what we're calling it, but that will be built into the rent
Yes.
for the lessees. Okay.
That's correct. Partially built into the rent. There are other properties that you're going to share it.
Additional lots.
Uh-huh.
And
on the south end of the project, there'll be additional lots that will share that assessment because they get value from the parking structure.
would that include the properties that are being built by Brian Knowlton or not?
I don't know if they will include Brian's properties or not, but they'll include the others.
Mm-hmm.
He's providing his own parking, at least up to date on lot 12 he is.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bruce?
Bruce, you said something about the first phase being the building on the north side of the parking?
No, if I said that, I was in error.
I probably misheard.
Okay, well, we'll build a parking structure and then the first one on the south.
Oh, okay.
The reason we're going to the south first is the amenity core and the pool and so forth are in that structure there, and then we keep going with the second phase. And we don't want to be in a position of leasing apartments without the amenities. You create credibility issues as a developer. The development creates credibility issues for itself. We'd rather provide everything that we can get up front, so there's no hocus pocus problems, so to speak.
Beautiful.
I have one more question. Has there been any analysis of what the renters portion, the individual units portion would be towards the parking garage?
Yes, they come in the common area assessment. They're approximately 25 cents a square foot. It might be less than that, might be as low as 20 cents a square foot.
I may have not asked the question very well, but towards the parking garage specifically. So we're looking at 3.98 million for the parking garage. It would be assessed, special assessment area, which would be part of the
We
apartments.
assess the buildings on a square footage basis. All of the buildings that are participating will have a square footage amount that they'll be paying on an annual basis.
Okay.
And that will be paid through the common area assessment allocated to that building. If it is a rental building, obviously what happens is like property tax. You proportion a share of the property tax to your tenant. So your tenant is effectively on a triple net lease, as we call it. They're paying for all of the property taxes. If they change every year, the tenants pay that, just like a homeowner would pay it. And those are pretty well dictated by the lending community and what they'll lend on. The rules, in the mortgage business, the lender pretty well dictates that to you.
Okay. You're saying about 25 cents a square foot.
Yeah, somewhere in the low 20s.
So if it's an 800 square foot apartment, it might be $200 a year or something.
More like 150, 160, divided by 12.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Francisco or any other thoughts?
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I guess we'd be looking for a motion to approve the master development agreement.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, aye. I forgot. Okay, that passes. Thank you so much. And now I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.